There's power in a drum beat on a hill above the sea. Power in the voice above the corner. But it all amounts to nothing. Together we don't sing. There's power when we're not OIC. Any day, go forever. Oh, town, scenery. Valley and mountain, chaparral to the sea. And the colors of our rainbow, sunset, orange, Tory, green. There's power when we're not OIC. ST Lloyd, oh, forever. Someday, North County. Desert to islands, get loud now, you and me. All our voices strong together as we cheer on our team.
Welcome to Bums Breakdown. We are trying something a little different this week, doing it live here on YouTube on a Friday night. So I hope some of you all are able to join us. So like I said, we are live. Please feel free to drop any comments or questions you might have in the chat. We will try to answer them and get to them as we can. If they're relevant, we'll jump right on it. If they're not, maybe we'll save it to the end. But we'll try and answer all your questions. As you might be able to tell, both by my appearance and accent, I am not Max. He was unfortunately not able to make it this week, which is too bad because this whole live thing was a fun idea we all had. But I do have joining me Chip. Chip, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. It's Friday. It's ready for the weekend. Can't wait to go up to AleSmith and hopefully see a win.
Yeah, very excited. I always enjoy going up to AleSmith. I think Loyal are 2 for 2 there. I might have to double check that, but or rather when we have our watch parties there. Great beer, and there should be the new Loyal beer for sale if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So I got a chance to try it earlier this week. It's actually very, very good. I'm not a huge fan of the like British pub ale style, generally speaking, but this one is like very, very drinkable. But yeah, so coming off a huge 3-0 win at home against Birmingham, Chip, kind of walk me through it. What'd you think of that game? What stood out to you?
I maybe it's the first time I've been leaving Torero satisfied. If that makes sense. I've been wanting to see a multi-goal game where we're not biting nails in the 93rd minute. Will they hold on? Will they not? Toomey continues to score. I really like the goals too. All of them were awesome. I don't know if it's been like maybe Nate's system is too complex and it just takes this long for people to finally gel. But we're starting to see all those connections in the final third and they're becoming more productive. And now we see a multi-goal game. My prediction was I couldn't decide 3-1 or 4-2. I just wanted to see more than a 1-goal win. So to see Colin tap that one in the end, it's like, holy cow, we're finally like, it's clicking, it's looking good. So it was good.
Yeah, and you got not only your multi-goal win, but also a resounding clean sheet. I know.
Oh yeah.
Birmingham had a couple of chances, and Koke made a couple of really, really good saves, to be fair. But I didn't overall feel like Birmingham posed much threat, despite the pretty stacked roster they have. Toomey, like you said, stays hot. I feel like he just keeps getting better, man. I really have enjoyed him each and every year, and I feel like he keeps improving. So it's great to see him keep scoring. That finish was so tidy. The pass from Quito was excellent as well. And then, like Colin's last goal, you said, it was a tap-in in the end, but the work that he and Ronaldo both did to get there was fantastic. The run and pass from Colin was, textbook Colin Martin. And then Ronaldo, to his credit, did great to dummy the keeper and almost chipped him. Colin was ready to let it go in if it was going to before he smashed it home. So that was, a great play. I really enjoyed that game. I think for me, it was maybe the best performance of the season. Like home or away. I don't know. What would you say to that?
It's hard to say, but it's hard to find a time when I felt quite as confident, say after the third goal or after the final whistle, to be like, that's what I wanted to come see.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the emotions of, the first home game back after the announcement. We definitely felt them at the watch party the week before. So it's just like, it's so I think every game is super nervy now, like I mentioned last time, you don't have a chance to come back and redo it in 2024. It's like, it's not going to happen. So it becomes now this is like our group stage before the knockouts, right? And so it's like we have to be every moment, every little, World Cup, Gold Cup, CONCACAF Cup, whatever tournament you're in the group stage, it matters. The points, the point differential, the pass that didn't make it, the goal that almost made it, the goal that did. Everything matters. The yellow cards adding up. This is it for them. So I'm hoping that we're going to see more clicks, more cohesiveness, which scares me because this is going to be a chaotic game this weekend. I'm sure it totally will be. So
I agree. Whether or not this is the best performance of the season, which again I do think it was. I agree with you that was the first time I left Guerrero this season, thinking like, yeah, that's what I want to see more of. And I'll tell you what, the last time I left Guerrero, like really emphatically having that feeling, was the game against San Antonio FC at home last season. I'm pretty sure ended by the same scoreline of 3-0. We played a great team off the park that night, and we did that again this past Sunday. So that was awesome to see. And yeah, maybe, the change in mindset a little bit with this almost kind of like knockout format, if you will, like de facto, definitely kind of changes the outlook. And it does seem like maybe the team has kind of stepped it up a little bit. To answer the question, yeah, we are doing questions, so feel free to drop them in whenever you want to. Yeah, there you go. So anybody, feel free to drop in questions whenever. We'll get to them as we go and as we can. But to look at the table now, we actually are doing okay. We are up into fourth. We have passed Oakland now, which is good because I know they have the current tiebreaker on us, I guess. We still have them to play. But that win was important over a tough team. You can see now we ahead of Phoenix, ahead of Oakland, a game in hand on both of them. We are 3 points behind Orange County, but still have the game in hand, but they do have the tiebreaker on us. But I feel like Max and I have done this dance a little bit back and forth the last few weeks, and we talked about it last week too, where it's like one game we have a good result, and we're thinking, yeah, I kind of like where we're at in the table. We're within striking distance, and then we have a bad result, and it's like, oh shoot, maybe not. I'm back in that first one now, where I'm thinking we're kind of within striking distance. Looking at this table, Chip, how do you feel about where we're sitting?
I can't be disappointed. I mean, we're above that home playoff line, so that's good with a game in hand. It's just really scary when you see OC ahead of us and they're that hot. Green, green.
Yeah, and I can tell you too that extends back beyond that 5. I think they've won 11 of 12 now at this point.
Oh my God.
They're on a tear. I mean, no two ways about it.
Yeah, and every up has to come down. So are they peaking too early? Because there's still a lot of season left.
That's the coping I'm going with right now, that they are in
because it could be, where I'm not saying it's luck. They're playing really well. But that can't last forever. It could be an injury away, and I never want to, force that upon a team or wish that upon a team. But that is always a possibility. Things could go wacky. I mean, I'm sure all USL clubs have some wacky in them,
100%.
Yeah. So I can tell you one thing. I don't think they're going to, run the table they're going to lose a game. They're going to tie a game. They're going to drop a point or two. That's why Loyal just has to stay absolutely focused, absolutely laser tight on not taking for granted the game in hand. Absolutely. It is a game in hand, but it's not anything until you win those games in hand.
We had that point, earlier a few weeks ago, where we had like 2 or 3 games in hand on a lot of teams, and then we went and got 1 or 2 points in those 3 games. So, yeah, opportunities are great, but you have to seize them. But anyway, kind of rolling into that, our opponent this week is Charleston. So here's a good look at how they've done so far this season. You can see they've won 3 of their last 5. They are kind of an up and down team. They have had some really big wins, and some really like catastrophic losses, namely 0-7 home loss to San Antonio, a 0-4 home loss to Indy, and a 0-1 home loss versus Oakland, which isn't as bad, but I just put it in there because anybody can lose to Oakland at home, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Charleston, you know, they're a good team. They've got some great players, but that plus minus 37-35. Loyal have actually scored 10 more and conceded, I think, one fewer. So, you know, it's a team we can beat, I guess. Have you had a chance to watch Charleston at all this year, Chip?
No. I tried. The closest I tried was to look at the game they played with them last year, and I think they played them at home. I think
that's correct.
Kyle Vassell had a brace. I don't remember.
Sounds right.
I think it was like a pretty big score line.
I think 4-1 was the final.
4-1. That's what it was. It wasn't a clean sheet. I remember that. Yeah, 4-1. So it's like, was that the last time I left Torero satisfied? And then it happened again last weekend? I'm not sure. I don't even remember going to that game. Maybe I was there. Maybe I wasn't. But like,
I was there. It was a fun game.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, Charleston were bad last year.
Yeah.
And even though we won that game 4-1, I actually don't know that like that scoreline really tells the tale of that game. I think we weren't actually that great. But anyway, that was last season. Charleston are really good this year now. They have hired Ben Pierman, who was the head coach of Memphis last year when they finished third in the East and had, I think, a decent playoff run. But they're currently third in the Eastern Conference. They've got 14 wins, 7 draws, 7 losses, 37-4 and 35 against, like I mentioned. Their last 5 games, you know, they're doing pretty good. They've done some notable results. They've done the double over Tampa this year, home and away. They've taken 2 draws against Louisville, so that's always a good result on the road. They beat Pittsburgh, who are currently first in the East, 3-1 at home. I would call that a big result. And then those big home losses I mentioned. And then one thing I kind of thought was notable was in their 27 games this year, they've only been held scoreless in 7 of them, which is not like a totally small amount. But the interesting thing I thought was that of those 7 games where they've been held scoreless out of 27, 5 of those came at home for them. So they're kind of like a really hit and miss team. They'll sometimes blow you away and sometimes drop the ball in the tune to 0-7 or 0-4. So I wish I could tell you like with more certainty what to expect in this game, but the truth is, yeah, I hope it's more on the 0-7 to the road team kind of scoreline, but I wouldn't be shocked to see like a 5-3 something kind of sort of, you know.
It does make me happy that the home losses came to Oakland, you said, and to who was the other one?
Indy, who I don't think are a great team, and then San Antonio 7-0.
San Antonio. I mean, so from the West Coast, you know, so a West Coast team can go in there and score some goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we can. My fear is that it for some reason blows off the doors, and we have one of those. I don't know if you remember I'm sure you do, the Sacramento away game last year, I think.
I do, yes.
And it was like Koke had like a 2.6 rating at like the 6th minute, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I'm not jinxing anyone, but that's honestly like my biggest fear, that something catastrophic happens. I don't think it will, but it's out there and it could happen. It's USL.
It's in the universe now, so if it does, I'm going to blame you, Chip.
Yeah, just blame me. I'm far enough away from everyone. Anyways, but at the same time, I almost have just as much confidence as them blowing the doors off them. Loyal going in and bagging 2 or 3,
or more.
Or more, yeah, or more. It could be crazy. I mean, San Antonio went in there and scored 7. Right?
That was a wild game. Go back and watch the highlights. To all of you who are watching this, will watch it. Mm-hmm. If you have the time and are bored, go back and watch the highlights of that game. It's absolutely wild. But kind of moving forward, we'll talk a little bit about Charleston's lineup and some of their key players. Kind of ignore the left half here. That's New Mexico. I'm not that tech savvy, so Just ignore that. But anyway, so this was their lineup the last game. They won 1-0 on the road against New Mexico. It was a pretty sloppy game on a very sloppy looking field. But they got the job done. Our boy Augustine Williams actually came off the bench and scored the only goal of the game. But like I mentioned, Augie Williams is a big key player for them. He's got 11 goals and 2 assists on the year. So he's clearly having himself a great year. But then some other big players for them are Nick Marcanic, the right wingers, got 7 goals and 2 assists, and Fidel Barajas, who's actually a Mexican U17 or U20 international. Very bright prospect, signed with Charleston over some MLS academies, which is very cool. Good for the USL. He's got 2 goals, but 8 assists this year. So he's having himself a year as well. So those are the big players I picked out. Is there anybody else in this lineup that jumps out at you, Chip?
Other than, our former goalkeeper that might understand some of our strikers coming at him. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
It's not like he hasn't seen Toomey, or who else would he have seen? Charlie Adams or Guido, or, some familiar faces coming at him. The Fidel Barajas does make me nervous. We've been broken down by national team players. I think going up to the Red Bulls, there was the U.S. kid,
Caden Clark, something like that.
He kind of undid us up there. So that's, I think the offense will be fine if the defense can stay focused.
Yeah.
And we saw that. We saw that last week. We saw some, I think what I think I saw for the first time this season was the whole thing with Koke playing up, and their idea of trying to get a 5th person up there, more midfielders, more in the attacking half. Watching, Perez kind of undo that wing back on the side, watching that cross come through 2 different players. It almost looked like slow motion, that first goal. Evan Conway's running through, doing what he should be, pulling out that center back, that cross going by him and somebody else. And I'm like, my hands went to my head. I was like, what? Oh, we missed another one. And then in comes Blake Bodley. It's like, oh yeah, we have an extra person because our goalie plays as a center back. Right. Yeah. So I don't remember ever seeing it that clearly before.
So I will say, I think that's a really good time to kind of transition into how will San Diego look. And this is our lineup from the last game. And to that point you were just making, I agree with you that I think this was maybe not the first time I've seen like flashes of what I think Nate's going for with the Koke thing, but I would say this is the first game where it really emphatically worked for 90 minutes. John Morrissey, USL Tactics, did a great thread on his game breakdown of this game, where he talked about how using that extra man in the defense allowed us to play around the Birmingham press really effectively. And I think that is relevant here because Charleston, in all the games I've watched them play, have like a cutthroat, like Liverpool style, like full metal, no holds barred kind of press. Like they just like to go, so if we can play through the front line, in our build-up phase like we've done, like Ben's showing in the comments, the +1 passer has really started to like yield some results. So I'm hopeful we can keep that working. I know this has not been the most consistent team this season, so game-to-game performances is sometimes a bit of a difficult one. But I do think if we can successfully do what we did against Birmingham and implement our build-up style, we might get a lot of big open chances for guys like Perez, Conway, Guido. So we'll see. I really do think this is going to be a high-scoring, maybe not high-scoring, but chaotic game.
It's going to be chaotic. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah. So this is actually the start of another sort of long road trip. They're going to Charleston and then Louisville, and then Monterey. I think Monterey is actually a midweek fixture, so I think that they might actually just go straight to Monterey after Louisville. I'm obviously not the guy who plans these things, but I would think that it might not be worth it to come back to San Diego. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tough road trip. Those are 3 really good teams, 2 of whom in Charleston and Louisville are doing very well so far this season. And the third in Monterey, who are actually kind of struggling this year, but always give us a tough game. And it's just not the easiest place to go play, even though I absolutely love it. And I know I've always said that, like, oh, well, everybody should go to the Monterey away day in future seasons. Well, unfortunately, this is actually going to be your last chance to go see San Diego Loyal play in Monterey. So if you can swing it, Monterey is a beautiful town. The stadium is amazing. The Monterey fans are super hospitable. It was a really wonderful away trip last year, even though we got spanked. But yeah, so anyway, that is to say, it's a tough road trip. I know we've got a couple people going out to Louisville, though. I know Matt and Matt's going out, and I think Corbin's going to be meeting them there too. So that'll be good. And I know Weston is actually in Charleston. I think he went out there today, so he should be there tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll have, I think we'll have San Diego representation at each of these away games. So hopefully that can help the boys get through it. But I have a couple just talking points or questions here just going into this next game. Conway, has he solidified himself as the number 9? I was a little surprised to see him not get the start against, I guess it was RGV. He didn't start. What do you think? He nailed on at this point?
You know what? I think he has. Every time that he wasn't in and he came in, it just seemed to click more. And I'm talking like months ago. Mm-hmm. I think the RGV game was maybe a rest. You also gotta play Damas at some point in time. You gotta have him get some minutes.
Well, and he played well too. So
yeah, he did play well, and he's a good striker. I'm still asking the question. I don't know if Damas hasn't figured Nate's system out, or the Loyal haven't figured Damas out.
I think it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest.
It probably is. If you can't decide between the two by now, it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that said, I think Evan understands the system a little better. Maybe his style of play fits a little better. I think Damas is a little more chaotic. But maybe that's what we need this game. That's going to be chaotic too.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a lot of Conway and Damas. I know we've seen a little bit, but is it worth it to try some experimental front lines, but then you take Toomey out, who's got 3 goals in the last 3 games?
You can't drop Toomey. You can't drop Toomey.
I don't know. It's like no.
I put up here just kind of not as necessarily predicted lineups, but this is Loyal's lineup from the last game, and then Charleston, I've put in Fidel Barajas here, and then Augie Williams, because I think they will probably play. But yeah, I do. I've said this many times. I refuse to believe that Conway and Damas fundamentally can't play together. Like, I just refuse to believe that. Whether or not they can play together in this system is a fair question. But I think in this game in particular, we're going to need the midfield 3. Whether that's Guido, Adams, Martin, whether Corona comes in for one of them, that I'm not sure. But we talked about the high press from Charleston. I think one of the things that made the extra man in Koke in the back line against Birmingham work so well was that the midfielders were like moving to create space for him, right? Or the whoever's on the ball. And so I think that we need to kind of do that similar structure. So I'm thinking we probably won't see much change in the midfield. But I don't know is there anybody you'd like to see come in other than that?
I've always been itching for a Guido and Corona, but that's just, I've seen him play down in TJ, so that's just my bias, Yeah,
fair enough.
I've seen Corona from when he was a teenager growing up there, so it's been fun to see him back and taking such a lead. I don't know if we're getting any of the injuries back. I think Riley might be coming back.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's hard to say. We did see him warming up at the last setup. So
that's true. Yeah, he said he was close too. Somebody asked him, "How you doing, Cam?" And he's like, "I'm close." So
yeah. So we'll see. We can't assume that they'll be there.
If he's fresh, do you bring him in for Elijah? Say he's fit.
I don't know.
I thought he had a great game. I thought.
Yeah, the defense played really well, and I think what I really, really did enjoy. I mean, the goals are great, but what I really did enjoy was that transition defense, because it did get a little nervy at times. But you got Blake, you got Elijah that are very speedy, and their transition defense was superb last game.
Elijah made some really excellent blocks too. I think he had two I can think of off the top of my head where I was like, alarm bells ringing, and then here comes Elijah. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah.
So I don't know how much you mess with it. I think this might be maybe this is it.
Yeah, we'll see, won't we? There's still plenty of time. But I think this is a good time to address one of the questions that was asked earlier about Kyle Adams getting moved on, and actually we'll see him not this weekend, but next. Yeah, that was a tough one. I think now, how do I say this without getting too depressing? I think now, with the added benefit of the lens of hindsight that we have with knowing what was going on behind the scenes in the front office, I do wonder if that maybe had something to do with it. Just kind of like there was an opportunity to give this guy a chance to go forward. He's a great fit for Louisville. He's been good for them. As far as his fit at San Diego Loyal, and what he may or may not bring that Grant Stoneman does, I think Kyle Adams is a better passer than Stoneman, but Nate didn't seem to trust him really. I think Stoneman has some reckless stuff he does, don't get me wrong, but I think more than Stoneman, Adams had like a big error per 90 in him, like potential every game, you know? Yeah. And I think that it was that Indy game where he gave away maybe both of the penalties. I don't know. That was like the last time we really saw him. So does he bring something that Stoneman doesn't? I don't know. It's tough to say. All players at this level have their limitations. But I think really what it comes down to is that Nate just did not seem to trust him anymore. And they had Michael Chalaka coming in, who actually has seemed to improve in his last couple of performances. But, it's just one of those things, I think, where the coach just didn't, for whatever reason, see it. I don't know, Chip, do you have any other thoughts on Kyle Adams there?
It's tough, and I don't want to get our local Kiwi Nick mad, but there was too many times that, Adams's hands were going to his head after a let-in goal or after a missed run or whatnot. It was just like, again, it's that time when we would score a goal and then they'd get one back so quickly, or we'd score two and then the next one would go in. It's like, can we not just, not have the leak in the boat? So it's like, I think it was time for him to move on. He might have seen that opportunity, like you said, knowing that. I trust Stoneman. I know he's not probably the best passer. He can be reckless, but let's not forget this. He's team one, and I hate to be a traditionalist, but we did have a great defense that first year. He kind of came through that first year as a star. I'm okay with Stoneman. I think he can provide some good cover. I
agree. And you know what? Here's a more concise answer to what he can give you that Kyle Adams doesn't. When you're playing this back three system, the way Nate wants to play, he's like, his defenders are very ball playing, very agile. I mean, Elijah and Guzman, Shilaka could really all be fullbacks in a more traditional 4-4-2 system, right? So what that allows Stoneman to do is he doesn't have to be the creative playmaker in defense. Koke comes up and you've got Stoneman and Koke, but they have these more adept ball players in front of them. And I think that kind of allows Stoneman to just be that the bruiser, sweeper, the enforcer, I think is what they call him. My girlfriend's going to hate me for not knowing what that's called in hockey. But yeah, enforcer. I'm 99% confident in that. But I think it kind of allows him to just be a little more free and do his crazy Grant Stoneman defense shit, So I think that he does better than Kyle Adams, and Kyle Adams was not a nimble or good enough defender to play one of those more advanced ball playing roles, even though he's a good passer, but I think he was just too error prone out there. So that's kind of my answer to that question.
It kind of sounds like it's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If everyone in the back line's a great passer who's defending, and it's like you
right.
need to break the lines, but you also you're a defender.
Right. Somebody's got to be in there who's just going to get in people's faces and tell them not today,
Yeah.
But we got another question here from Ben about the transition defense. And I think that's a good observation about it being more of a 4-4-2 rather than being caught in a 3-5-2. As far as ideas why, I think that's kind of interesting because we know that Nate and Landon in previous seasons tried to do a much more pronounced, that kind of 4-4-2 in defense, 3-5-2 in attack sort of deal. I think the reason it's working better now is it's fundamentally just more subtle. It's not as the left winger has to both be the left winger and the left back. Bodley is really an archetypal wing back. He's good at both attacking and defending, and he kind of gives them that flexibility, whereas Perez, though he can get back, is really more of an attacker. So with kind of that asymmetrical shape it gives them, I think that is probably why it's worked better than in the past, in my opinion anyway, just because it's a little more nuanced, and it has players that, to their credit, fit it better than maybe they did in the past.
I mean, I think you had some speed on the wings too in Martin and Bodley. I still haven't seen anyone run past Bodley this season.
He's been really good.
He'll run for 95 minutes and, do it again the next game.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Bodley this season. I know he was kind of an under the radar signing, but he's really impressed me.
For sure, he's got vigor for sure.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like the breakdown there though. That's astute there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we got another question here. Besides Koke, who's been y'all's MVP? I think that's fair. Koke probably gets the nod at this point. Moon had a great year until he got hurt. Nick Moon is one of those players that I think I will always wonder, kind of what if he could have just stayed a little healthier, both for him personally, but also for San Diego Loyal. He is just an electric player. He's the kind of guy you want to pay money to see play. I think Perez is a great shout. Charlie is a good shout. It's one of those things where you almost it was not having him that made you realize how important he was, Exactly. Yeah, man, I don't know. That's a really tough question. I think I would probably say Perez is edging it right now, but I think Toomey, if he keeps on this form, is going to get my vote because I freaking love Toomey. He has been my boy ever since year one. Conway, if he starts scoring a few more goals, getting a couple more assists, he's on 9 goals this year or something like that. He's quietly had 10. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. He's quietly had an excellent year. But I think for me, my answer to this question, and Chip, I'll let you do your soapbox next, but Toomey for me is probably going to get my nod, just because I think he, year one player, so that's awesome. Always plays with a smile on his face, and I don't think that that can be underappreciated. And then when you add in the context of the fact that this season will be our last, unfortunately, Toomey's our all-time leading scorer, and unless Conway freaking pops off in the last few games, that's not going to change. So Toomey gets my nod, maybe a little bit of sentimentality there, but if he keeps playing like he is, I really think he would deserve it too. So yeah. Anyway, how about you, Chip? Who you got?
I'm gonna shout out the Toomey too, but I think I have to talk about Charlie Adams. Because he was playing out of his mind at the beginning of the year before that injury. I think he's still probably coming back a little bit, but I think we could see some big things from him in the next few games. Just even if you don't hear his name or even notice him, because like you said, when he's gone, then you're like, what happened? Why are my shoes untied? So I think there's more for him to come. Free kicks, corner kicks, some, the hockey assists. things of that nature. The commanding of the midfield, the turns, the stopping of the transition in the middle. He does a lot. And it's not the things that you see. It's not the pass before the goal or the goal itself all the time. He's the kind of leader, the kind of person that sees more than just where the ball is or where it's going to go next. He's a chess player.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a plus for the Loyal to have him.
I think one of the things that I recommend all y'all Loyal fans do at any of these last few games, if you just take like 5 minutes and just watch Charlie. Like if this is a home game I'm talking about, like if you're in the stands, even when he's not on the ball, just watch him running around. You'll see the things he does to get into position, to give his teammates angles. You'll see him like flicking his head around a lot, like looking around. The best midfielders in the world are doing that. I think like stat people call it scanning. There's a way to like quantify it, but I don't know what it is. But my point being that like Charlie does these things that like a really top level midfielder does. He's always knows where everything is. But then on top of that, he's the only ever club captain of San Diego Loyal. I think that's worth a lot, So yeah, Charlie's a fair shout for sure. I don't know.
It's a tough call because they're not. I mean, they are. I think what's nice is that you look across at the Battery and they have our old friend Augie up there, and he's at 11 goals, right?
Yes,
we're shouting over here with Conway with 10. Toomey's in the mix. Cullen scored last week. Perez hasn't scored in a while, but he could. Bodily scored that, so we're spreading a bunch of the offense out.
Yeah.
So I think that says more than just like, oh, we've got this guy. No, we've got several. And that's hard to defend when Conway's running through for a dummy ball to watch that bodily first goal. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. We've spread out the goals this year better. And I do want to acknowledge, we kind of didn't get to it, but earlier in the show, somebody had made him. Oh yeah, Domus. Like even if he's not scoring, he presses well. He's an active guy, and he's creating like chaos in the defense. And I want to give him a shout out here. He's quietly scored 7 goals this year, which like
crazy.
I think if that's what you'd have asked for at the beginning of the season, or if what you've been told, and maybe it would have been like, oh, I thought he'd score more. But given the year he's had and the struggles that he and the team have had, I think that's admirable. But yeah, Toomey's got 7 and Toomey's got 5 assists as well. Perez on 6, Bodley on 5 goals. Joe Corona's got 3. I mean, it's a good goal spread. So yeah, I've enjoyed that this year for sure.
I think we do have to keep an eye on Domus too, because when he made that run with OC, it was at the end of the year.
Exactly, and he actually wasn't. It's not that he had a bad year prior to that playoff run, but he wasn't like MVP caliber prior to that playoff run. So maybe he's a guy who just shows up when it matters,
And we're gonna need it. It's gonna, like I said, he can be better in the chaos, and it's going to be chaotic. Not just this game, but we're gonna strap it in, folks. We're riding a roller coaster till the end.
Anyway, on that note, I think we have answered all questions that have been posed. So if you have anything in the comments and you want to get any last minute questions in here, go ahead and drop them now. But I'm going to ask you, Chip, you've had some time to think about it. Score prediction. What you got?
Oh, my goodness. It's not going to be a clean sheet on either end. That's all I am totally for sure about. It's hard to say because I want to say something in my heart, but then my logic brain says,
I think with 8 regular season games left in the history of San Diego Loyal, go with your heart, man.
I'm going to go with my heart, and I'm going to say it's going to be a 4-3 nail biter for Loyal.
I love that, and I would probably say that I'll enjoy that now and then hate it all the way through and then enjoy it after the final whistle. So I'll take that. Goal scorers for Loyal at least. Who
okay. Conway's got to get back on the board. I think he's becoming a more prolific goal scorer in that he's making runs for other people to score too. But he's going to bag at least one. I'm going to shout out a Guido goal. I think he's ready for it.
Love it.
We'll see. What is it? Conway, Guido, and let's do another brace for Toomey.
Love it. Yeah, I think I agree. Probably not going to be a clean sheet on either end. I'll go 4-2. We'll put a little more faith on our defense, but still going to be a nail biter. We're still going to find a way to make it stressful. But yeah, I'll go brace for Conway, goal for Toomey, goal for Damas, and then for Charleston, I'll go Augie to get one, and let's go Barajas just because I like the kid. I wouldn't mind seeing him score a banger as long as we win.
Yes.
But yeah, that's kind of it, I think. Okay, here's one more question. This is a little more existential.
Oof.
This is not really bump breakdown territory, but we're here. We can do this. I don't know, Chip, how would you describe the identity of San Diego Loyal?
I've said this so many times, especially it was around that Miami game at Ale Smith when that announcement for the MLS team came. And we were all processing, right? One of our supporters, a great mom herself, Alicia, had mentioned, this is what it's going to be, right? Loyal's going to be your favorite taco shop, and SDFC is going to be Chipotle. I like Chipotle.
That's a good way of putting it.
But I also really love my local taco shop too, you know?
Yeah.
Chip, that's Alicia's line. You got to put her.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it, Chip. I think that's very astute. I think it's hard to say because it's in the midst of a playoff run, right? When people are asking about the identity of the team, they're probably talking about the play on the field. And to that, you could say they were a team that, despite not always succeeding, they were committed to playing attacking football. They wanted to entertain first and foremost. But I think if somebody were to ask me about the identity of San Diego Loyal, the play on the field is, honest to God, not the first thing I'd talk about. I think I would talk about how they were like radically committed to the community, how they bled for that community, for San Diego, and they wanted to do things right. And when the fans felt that they weren't doing things right, we told them, and they responded in kind, and they always made themselves better. So I think at the end of the day, like if you ask me during a playoff run, yeah, we'll talk about on the field play, but their identity of San Diego Loyal, it's a club that cared, man. They wanted to do things the right way more than they wanted to be the biggest or whatever. And I think at the end of the day, that's why I will remember this so fondly. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question, Ben. I know that's probably not going to be helpful in the stands when people are drinking beers and whatnot, but that's kind of my take.
We love to love them, but they are just as stubborn as all get out on that field.
Yes, they are.
You have to. If I had a chance to give Nate Miller a hug, I would, because you're starting to see what he can do, and we have to put our trust in him. We have to put it all in.
Yeah. And, I appreciate that he's been here for the whole project as well. So, he started with us. He's going to see us through and hopefully bury us with the cup. But with that, Chip, do you have any last thoughts on this game this weekend, or just kind of San Diego Loyal in general?
Let's just embrace the chaos and, just celebrate and smile.
Yeah.
And let's just keep it positive for the whole season.
Yeah, embrace the chaos. I love that. All right, well, on that note, we are going to embrace the chaos and end there. But thank you to everybody who tuned in and asked questions. This was a lot of fun. We've been talking about doing this live version of this for a little bit now, but it kind of finally worked together this week. And I will also be totally honest with all of you that we also didn't really have time to record and edit this week. So this actually makes our jobs easier because we can just post it right on YouTube. So nice. 2 birds, 1 stone. But anyway, we might do this again. I actually am going to be gone for the next few weeks. So Max and Chip will be bringing it to you. I know they're both busy, so they'll do what they can. But this live option, who knows? We'll try it again. I had a lot of fun. This was a good time. So yeah, this will be posted on the YouTube channel under the live videos tab, I think it is. But yeah, with that, thanks for tuning in. Chip, thank you again for helping out.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you all at the watch party tomorrow.
Let's do this.
San Diego forever.